Evening, everybody. So, this took a lot longer than I was planning, but we are here and we are ready to spend some time in Hush House. Excuse me. I chowed down on dinner very, very rapidly, and I I've got hiccups now. Okay. So tonight, the real problem here was I left work quite late. I think I'd said I'd planned for 90 minutes, and there were a couple things that got in the way of that 90-minute estimate. I always do the best that I can with what I've got in front of me, but basically I have a big commute now for work, so especially with a lot of snow that we've had lately. I'm never quite sure where we're at. Now, I'm going to do my best to do a full stream tonight, but obviously it is quite late for me to be starting. In fact, normally when I start this late, it's kind of like just not having the stream at all because I know there just isn't the same opportunity for people to be able to watch, and the audience isn't necessarily there. Now, I don't necessarily like that attitude towards streaming. Obviously, you do the best show that you can for people who are here, and I recognize that there is an audience that watches on the YouTube videos, but it is just as a practical matter, it's going to be very late at night if I do a full length stream. I do have a cup of coffee in front of me, so I am going to do my best to go through, but I have a couple of things that are hello, Melody the Moth, good to see you. But yeah, I've got a couple of things that I need to do over the weekend, so we will see. We'll see how far we can get. But again, my expectations should be to do as good of a show as I can, and some of this will, it'll sort itself out. Well, I don't take attendance, so it's always nice to see people, but I think probably the best way I can really put it is I kind of, I'll always notice as much as I can, when there are regulars, and I can definitely know a few people who are regulars that I don't really see around as often, and I sometimes wonder if it's because of the Book of Hours side or not. But I also just kind of accept that if I keep streaming for a very long time, there's just going to be people who, not even for any reasons related to me, just move on with life, right? I do think there are better things you can do with your time than watch streams. Obviously, I don't mean to insult the people who are watching, but, the fact of the matter is, for me, I don't watch that much Twitch. And so people not watching my stuff really reflects people who are making decisions kind of more in line with what my personal decisions are. So with that in mind, I've always tried to take the view of being really happy when I see familiar names inside of the stream, but never to sort of comment on whether or not people have whether or not I've seen them. I mean, occasionally it's nice to just say to someone, hey, it's been a while. But I've always tried to sort of highlight the presence as opposed to the long period in between. Yeah. No, I totally get what you mean by that. But I always figure comments like that are always just a nice chance for me to give the quick reminder, especially because I know for some people, like in some cases, I've just seen sort of a familiar name sort of lurking in the channel, and that's fine. Like I definitely, one of the first things I learned broadcasting, I used to like saying hello to people who would stop by, and I noticed that did make people feel uncomfortable. So I always wanted to interact with the people who had indicated a willingness to interact by chatting. But yeah, I do occasionally see some names, and I figure just being able to say stuff like this, for those people who might be on the fence about whether or not they feel like they can say anything, it's always nice to offer these little reminders. Just to sort of smooth the times. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you may have even mentioned the time zone, because like this is actually a very, very late start for me personally, and that's just simply because I was at work quite late today, and then I went home. So I was expecting a certain delay in terms of getting home on time, but it wound up being even later than that. So I don't normally stream, like I maybe would be wrapping up a stream around this time, but I definitely wouldn't normally be starting one. I suppose this is a nice sort of side effect of, of having the hours. Wait a minute. I feel like I should have more invitations, but I guess not. I was wondering if I was in my YouTube, but my YouTube one wouldn't have the full house open. I'm just gonna take a quick second here. Yeah, this should be it. February 12th. I'm sure this is it. Just I want to double check. I felt like there should maybe be more. Okay. I guess I did work through all the invitations. Anyways, sorry. The time for me, it's just hit 11:30. All right, I'm gonna take a quick second here and bring up my notes from last stream. I kind of have, I remember we were gonna do a salon, but I don't remember the exact details, and I figure I should have that in the notes. Oh dear. Okay, here we go. I don't have a to-do list. I do, however, have my guest list. So, Douglas, oh. Aha. This makes sense. So this was not my, this was not my, my salon invitations. This was the overflow. Okay. So it seems to me like we've more or less got the salon in place. We need the drinks, but that's about it. So I will write some invitations to Aaron Peel, Stanislav John Schaller, Douglas Moore, Daymare, and Coquille. And we can do that right now. Now I just need to post it. Okay, so next up, Aaron Peel. I don't know why I thought this would be a moon desk. Sorry, just getting some basics down here before I commit too far into the day. Okay. I may want to make another pot of tea. I think I will. Nope, I can't do that at the kitchen range. Bring the water to the boil, permit the potential here to express itself. Oh, we are in the same time. Okay, Eastern time? Huh. So you just must work really, really late then. Or, sorry, no, you're saying just, I always stream super late for you due to the time zone. Yeah. No, so I mean, in an ideal world, I start the stream at 7 p.m. and then finish around 10. In practical terms, it's been closer to an 8 o'clock start lately, so I'll usually finish around 11. Yeah, well, I've got a coffee in front of me, so hey, how you doing, Zerog? But yeah, used to be based in BC, but I've been out east for a while now. Okay. Next up. Schaller. So I do believe I was going to be going through the individual rooms to just look at the various items while we were waiting for certain events to happen. I still want to follow through on that, but right now I'm just getting some prep work done. So after the prep... Oh, fair enough. Yeah, so I guess I just keep terrible hours. That was actually, so the funny thing about this is that I never put too much stock into the VODs. Like I did them originally because, especially with the move basically across the country, I did have some friends who basically couldn't watch the stream anymore because of the time difference. And I didn't really like the idea of sort of, leaving them. I mean, again, I'm not under any illusion that like people have this, System Shock shaped hole in their life when I don't broadcast. But where you can, it would be nice to give people a chance to see the thing that they might be interested in. And the funny consequence of that was that that was how I kind of became aware that Cultist Simulator was getting popular, because while those videos were always intended for a small number of people who, kind of knew the stream and roughly knew what they'd be interested in, there were some people who wound up sort of using them to learn the game. And of course, they're not necessarily that good for it. It, usually involves me going off on rants on any old subject. Of course, I later did a more tutorial video for that, but yeah, that was probably the point where I really wanted to hit, I really wanted to hit a proper, like have a proper series going on. So only 3 days that I work, mostly for, oh, cool. But yeah, no, I definitely should do better. I should keep better hours, and then number two, I should, well, I should also put a little more effort into the VODs. Well, I guess there's no effort. Like, obviously, these are for a live audience. Anyways, regardless of how often you're able to stop by, Melody, I'm happy you're here. And I'm glad, for one reason or another, that you were able to hang out for tonight. As for Zarog's question, whose library would you raid if I don't stream? Good question. I did see, it's like if it was Kibbles and Bricks was streaming it today, and then I noticed Lord Gloom had done a little bit, but I also know that he went to Tarkov, so I don't know if that just means he got sick of the game or not, but... The writing case is a DLC thing. So the House of Light expansion, the writing case effectively gives you access. Or actually, hang on. I'm gonna take a quick second here. I might be able to figure that out on the Steam page. So yeah, the social events are definitely a DLC thing. And I'm trying to think if there's any reason why you would have... Actually, this will be one I consult the wiki for. Yeah, so the wording here is a little ambiguous. So it says the writing case is a blank item introduced in the House of Light DLC, which allows recording the addresses of visitors and villagers and requesting their presence for a salon. So I would be willing to guess here that the proper interpretation of that is that the writing case is a DLC item. When it says it's introduced in the DLC, it would also be true that romance was introduced in the Dancer DLC, even though that was not a feature of the Dancer DLC for Cultist Simulator. That's the distinction that I would make. But my guess here is that essentially what this does is that instead of just helping someone do the event that you're on, so in this case we're doing the Affair of Apollo and Marsyas, when you help someone, they will give you a kind of a calling card. You can add that to your writing case. So one nice side effect of that is you get an occult scrap when you add them to the writing case, which is nice. But the other practical benefit is that you can write these invitations to bring them to the house. Now, the direct reason why you would want to do that is for the salon. So this is why it makes sense to... this is why it would be a DLC feature, because the salons were part of the DLC. And of course, inviting people back also lets them, lets you bring people into the Lighthouse Institute. But one practical side effect of this is that I'm using it to try and get through the events very, very quickly by inviting just a crush of people at the beginning of the season, so that I can go through the event in one go, essentially. Glad to know that you don't need to worry about waiting for specific people to show up. You can just summon them. Yeah, no, it's a neat feature for a few reasons. Again, the headline reason is definitely the hosting salons, but I think there's some other side benefit. Like, another way you can think of it too is that if you were short on Spintria, one thing that you could do is just invite someone for a consultation, and then you'd be able to get the benefits of the of them reading the book again. So it's smaller, but hello, Jamie. Good to see you. If you could just give me a second. I just need to get something out of my backpack. Anyway, sorry, I don't need to belabor the point on the writing case, but basically the side benefits that I found for it are just I've never really needed the extra Spintria, but I can see why making it a little more difficult down the road might be a price I'm willing to pay to get a quick Spintria. And as Zarog points out, it is very helpful in terms of getting certain languages, especially if you don't have the money at the time. So, for instance, I think Father Stanislav John Schaller offers 2 different languages. So technically I could invite him back 2 times. The other big one, though, is the fact that you're able to invite people back also means that you don't have to make that decision between helping someone and getting the language from them. That was something I always felt a bit bad about in the main game. Okay, sorry, I'm losing track of what I need for... Right, so it's just 2 water for Peel and Schaller. And yeah, Zarog's uttering heresies here. We don't do faster runs on this channel. Okay. So we're ready to go for our next salon. And then after that, well, actually, let's keep, I don't know. We'll keep going with our investigation in the various items in the house. I think we are good to go. We did the chess set, the chess set, actually, I don't remember about the Spartan chair. We'll have to do that tomorrow, though. Oh no, hang on. I think we did the snug chair and the... Yeah, so I guess it's the soft blue sofa and the paintings. I like the description for departure. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Okay, so we'll earn a bit of money at the Sweet Bones while we invite everybody in. If nothing else, that just pays for the postage. And Oriflammes. Oriflammes established 1776. Sense Sign Sciences. Dear librarian, we'd like to offer you this opportunity to purchase operations of a certain finality. I'm trying to think if I've ever gotten this one. Subtitled The Hammer's Sundering, the work of an anonymous adept who violently despised the invisible Serapeum, the library of the Watchman's Tree in Alexandria. The iron won't cut it. Okay. So we'll just wait out the arrivals. We will earn a little bit of money. I can't investigate the items because we'll be using these elements of the soul for the salon. Although what I will do here is I'll use the one whist just because I have a surplus for that. And we're not yet starting the main event. All right, everyone's arriving. And here we won't be starting until the afternoon as before. Okay, so we will be hosting in the Hall of Division. Ava DeWolf first furnished this as her Hall of Division, hosting feasts where the guests were selected by unusual and exacting criteria. Later, Thirza Blake, 7th Librarian, employs the Speculous Pomander to add more mirrors. Lots more mirrors. We will be hosting D.I. Douglas Moore, Detective Illuminate of the Suppression Bureau. A stoic but weary fellow, his dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. We won't renew the run at the Sweet Bones while we do the salon. Dr. Aaron Peel, exile, riddlemonger, thunderskin devotee, I'd rather say confidant. Impeccably dressed, but always in dark clothing so the stains don't show. Dark the dressings too at his ankles and his wrists. I won't take a seat. It's kind of you to offer. It would be unkind of me to accept. Mr. Eason Fekri. Formerly, Eason was a healer. He was not human. He was Secretary Salvant of Hush House, but not all at the same time. Fussy, kind, famously foul to look upon. Damer, Gräfin Frederica Dagmar Sophia Teresa Helena Begina von Nagelsberg, if you prefer. She doesn't. And Princess Kokil Amirajibi, artist, socialite, burglar, an unspeakably charming woman with a particular knack for getting adopted. And they will be enjoying pickled mushrooms, you'll learn to like them, steaming spring vegetable pie, game chips, long before fish and chips. These went crunch. Oh, sorry, I didn't read this. So, pickled mushrooms, you learn to like them. Steamed spring vegetable pie, originally a product of Lord Berners Kitchens at Farringdon House, favored by Haber Percy, mad boy Berners' companion, who inlaid the floor of his changing room with pennies and built steps up to his swimming pool. Game chips. Long before fish and chips, these went crunchily with game. Ideally, you'd want bread sauce and breadcrumbs to complete the ensemble, but honestly, it's hard enough not to just stuff these directly into your mouth. An orange jumble. They should be the size of teacup rims and should curl their crisp edges, faintly pink as the underneath of a young mushroom. Lady Jekyll, kitchen essays, and fudge. All the bad things doing a good thing. They will be drinking TRN Limited Drinking Cocoa, a cup. TRN Spices and Savors Department markets this as the secret sacrament of the last Inca. Cater and Hero Second Flush of Sam, tea from the land of the real unicorn, imported by Cater and Hero, and Isle Water, deep from Brandkrug's Deep Springs. Okay, I think I messed up. Right, so it was Eason who wanted Moon and it was a sky drink. So that oh, for heaven's sake. I brought the wrong person in. And I do want Stanislav John Schaller. So, my bad. Let's get this. It's nectar. So it's going to take us a minute to get him in. Again, I'm not too worried about it because we've got plenty of time left with spring. What I'll do is I'll have a quick chat with Eason just to make him happy with a book. Yeah, he's already interacted with that. So, I prefer not to give up the Ceaseless Tantra. Yeah. Lord Gloom, thank you very much for the host. I saw that you were playing this a little while ago, but I don't know if you gave up in frustration. And we have Moko Maid. Thank you very much for stopping by. Thank you, all of you, for stopping by with the host. I'm actually getting ready to host a salon. I don't know if Lord Gloom got to a point with that yet, but I, as you probably can guess, am System Shock. And I've been playing this game for a while. I am a very big fan of the Secret History setting. I liked Cultist Simulator. I played Book of Hours. Actually, this particular playthrough was one that we started back in the beta for the House of Light expansion. And we are about to begin the salon. So I don't want to talk too much about some stuff which you may uncover through Lord Gloom's stream. I think maybe the way I'll handle that is if anybody has questions, I'm very happy to answer them. But I maybe won't just... I'll try and retain some of the stuff that might be fun for you to discover on his channel, and leave it there. So basically, you know, we can respond to people's interests. You're taking this run much more slowly. You went to the beach, learned roughly how salt water maybe helps you make ink. I have some ideas about that. I am obviously happy to answer any questions along those lines, Lord Gloom, but I also sometimes know to recognize thinking out loud as thinking out loud. Still don't really know how skills work. Well, we're actually going to probably wind up using a couple of them before too long, so I can show you a little bit of... I'll show you a couple of interactions with the skills. But yeah, for those of you who are brand new to this game, maybe have discovered it through Lord Gloom, I am doing one of the features that was added in the House of Light DLC for this game. So in this game, you have people who will visit the library, and very often they will be visiting in response to a specific incident that's happening in the world. We have the affair of Apollo and Marsyas. And if you help them out in the House of Light DLC, you have an item called the writing case. And this actually gives you the ability to write a letter to people and invite them back. And the reason why you will want to do that is that you can host a salon. So there's a whole sort of kitchen crafting. There's this whole you can make a bunch of goodies for people to eat and drink. And this sort of ties in a way to the headline feature of the House of Light DLC, which is founding the Lighthouse Institute. You can almost think of it as sort of a continuation. You'll notice that the house has these different periods. So you start in the baronial period. There's the solar period up here. There's the dawn period down here. Nocturnal curia. And you can think of the Lighthouse Institute as sort of beginning a new era in Hush House's story. So it's quite exciting. We have, I think, 2 or 3 people that we want to recruit for the Lighthouse Institute before we're ready to put an end to this playthrough. But what I'm just getting ready to do is host this salon. So we made a bunch of food. I invited the wrong guest, so we're just getting ready to send out the invitation and have the individual arrive in about a minute. But I will leave it there. Now, if you'd like, Lord Gloom, I can just show you how I do crafting with a particular skill, but I think you've seen me do that. So was there something more specific about the crafting that you wanted me to cover, or did you just want to have that run by when we naturally run into that as part of our playthrough? Okay, you got 2 skills today. Usually you'll get those from reading the books, so... Yeah, so in this case, wolf stories. Sometimes we eat the wolf, and sometimes the wolf eats us. So how would you figure out how to use that? All right, yeah, so I think I know what's going on here. So there's a feature that was added in the game after the... No, there's definitely stuff that you can do with the wolf stories. So there's a feature that was added after the release of the game, which will actually give you a little recipe book for each skill. So there isn't a dedicated number. Some skills will have more recipes, other skills will have fewer recipes. But in general, you can think of it as there being at least a prentice, scholar, and keeper level recipe. And I'll read, I know we talked about this before, I'll just take the time to read the descriptions here so everybody can be on the same page. The prentice level challenges, the simpler techniques that require skill alone. For basic recipes, provide 5 degrees of the relevant aspect. Scholar level challenges, more advanced techniques require power as well as significant skill. For more challenging recipes, provide 10 degrees of the relevant aspect. Every scholar level recipe also needs an ingredient with a specific aspect. So that's going to be the part that gets a little tricky on this. And then the keeper level challenges, available only to the wise, the great, or the most fortunate of idiots. For the most challenging recipes, provide 15 degrees of the relevant aspect. Every keeper level recipe also needs a very specific ingredient. The perfect ingredient may even mean that you need less aspect. So insofar as you want to do crafting with these, the basic level that you need is just 5 of one of the relevant aspects. And generally that's going to mean the 2 aspects that are related to the skill. However, I will say for sure that is not true for all of them. Some of them will actually accept aspects that aren't part of the skill. And there are books that will actually tell you as much as well, but I figured I'll keep the book stuff to myself. So one of the best ways to sort of start with this is just to try and go for the apprentice level challenge, because it says here you just need the aspect, you just need the skill. As long as we have 5, we're good to go. So because this is a level 7 skill, we already have 8 and 7. We're guaranteed to get this right, but we always need an element of the soul, as it says here. Skill without effort is like tea without boiling water. No one wants to eat tea leaves. So I'll add health because that has a scale aspect. And in this case, we could use it to make Bisclaret's knot. Use my own blood to trace a feral sigil. And normally what I would do is I would want to add my tryst because that has the moon aspect, but because we already have 5, we can also make the midnight mark. Concentrate nocturnal resonances with a careful sigil. Now, what you'll notice here is that so first of all, under craftable, once you know how to make this recipe, it's going to unlock inside of your this little window here. If you don't like it, you should be able to. Now, there we go. So this is what the game used to be like. I think most people like this improvement. So what adding Tryst just gets you to the level 10 skill. So this is the important part. I'll actually show you what happens with that, Lord Gloom. I just wanted to kind of be clear on a couple of details here. So imagine here that these 2 wouldn't be shown. Everything starts off with these question marks first. So let's say I wanted to go on the scale first. There's the description in terms of the game, but there's the square bracket will actually tell you how to get to that level 10. So Wolf Stories with apprentice level scale creates Bisclaret's knot, or for a scholar level recipe, add a memory to recall something older and more powerful. So very often what will happen is you'll get a bit of a nudge from the game to say what you need for the higher level. So this is the important part. Right now I have 9 scale. So let's do an experiment here. Let's not pay attention to the moon right away. Let's actually add the serpent style glass so that we can get to 10. So it's like, okay, I've got 10 scale. What gives, right? Why am I not making the old moment? Well, it comes back to that description from the scholar level challenge. For more challenging recipes, provide 10 degrees of the relevant aspect. Every scholar level recipe also needs an ingredient with a specific aspect. But you need a memory. Exactly. So in this case here, even though this doesn't have any scale inside of the memory. Oh, actually, this one doesn't work because it doesn't have the right aspect. So we'll put the final understanding in. Even though this doesn't have moon or scale, it doesn't matter. I just need the memory aspect. And now I can make the old moment. Similarly, if I add the I can't add the Tryst in this case because I've got the wrong desk. We'll go to Ava's desk in this case. Right, so that brought me up to 11 moon, but as you identified before, it says here, if I use this on remains, I can render something darkly leathery and chillingly powerful. So I could use I don't have a slot for animal bones. I'd probably have to use this at the necropsy table. But then I wouldn't be able to add the element of the soul. As long as I could find some way of getting moon. There we go. Right, so now we can make the essential periost out of that. There are other things that count as remains, by the way. I believe a canned ham actually counts as a remains too. But yeah, so the last step, of course, is the the keeper level recipes. And those ones, sometimes you actually only find out about them by reading books. I can give you one which I think I remember offhand. If you use the glassfinger toxin, you can make the sacrament acite. At least for this particular combination. I won't keep it on the screen for too long in case you... I mean, if you remember, you remember. But for that one, even if I had put a different kind of knock liquid in, that wouldn't have worked. It specifically had to be the glassfinger toxin and nothing else. So the keeper level recipes by far are the most difficult, and it's not even necessarily because of the high level of the aspect that you need. It's specifically because they need a certain type of ingredient, and if you don't have that certain type of ingredient, it doesn't really matter. Exactly, yeah. So they're progressively more difficult, but even in terms of just, okay, I just want to get the fancy thing. Exactly. Yep. So a broad category of aspect, and exactly, yeah. 15 is 15 plus the plus that precise ingredient that it needs. Of course, the thing that's kind of nice about the precise ingredient is, like I'll use the glassfinger toxin as the example. That has 4 knock, so technically I just need 11 knock because I know the required ingredient already gives me 4 of the relevant aspect. But there's no point in thinking that way. It creates more confusion than is strictly necessary. But that's generally how the crafting works. The only thing to kind of keep in mind in terms of variation is that not every skill is going to have sort of 6 ingredients that you can make, right? So you'd think if it was like, moon and scale, you'd have 3 moon and 3 scale, but there are some which have a certain special status, and they're ones that you can kind of infer based on the name of the skill. But generally, there are some which will allow you to do more because they're a little bit about turning one thing into another. And then there's a couple of other things which will give you some bonuses. So I'll give you one example to start off with, but I'm going to encourage you to take a look at the aspects of the skills that you have. Chandlery. So some of the skills will actually give you other things which in some cases will be related to crafting, but maybe not the kind of crafting that you're accustomed to. So in this case here, chandlery, a skill that can be used with suitable ingredients to make candles. The most likely ingredients are beeswax and herbs, but to confound villagers and visitors, leave a meaningful pause before the word suitable. So, a skill that can be used with suitable ingredients to make candles. So in this case here, if I wanted to do that with pyroglyphics, I think I can do that at the Alchemist Glassware. So as it says here, add beeswax. Oh, I gotta... So even though this doesn't appear in the craftable window, so make a beeswax candle or add a second ingredient. Again, I'll pick one of the... I think we've got Aglephotos here, so... Oh, right, it won't. That one's a bad example because it won't take a flower. Anyways, you got to see the... you did get to see at least the candle side of things. And if you can work out other combinations as long as you can accept the... as long as you accept the second ingredient alongside the beeswax. But yeah, so I just wanted to... I realize this is like an endless answer to your question, but the pick and shovel work of your skills is usually going to be that 5, 10, 15 crafting pattern collection. But in practical terms, you're going to find some other purposes for the skills either based on very specific aspects that they have, or possibly depending on, well, it's just a question of certain actions that you want to take in the game. And, of course, as you pointed out earlier on, they are also good for leveling up your ability to just do things in general, right? So if I wanted to read a 10 heart book, well, that's not that hard, right? Pretty much any element of the soul that I have with heart is enough to be able to bring that up to 10. So one of the reasons you may want to level up a skill has nothing to do with what kinds of things you get from the crafting, and it has everything to do with the fact that you just want that higher level to be able to get that other book. I know if you go on the subreddit, there's a lot of opinions about what, quote unquote, what the best skill is. But the thing is that you can only really know that after you've played the game. And of course, that means that you've already spent some time leveling up skills and committing them to the Tree of Wisdoms. So the game is very clearly made to accommodate any sort of path through the Tree of Wisdoms. And I personally think there's a lot that's lost if you just, if you're just thinking about what's the optimal path through the game. I mean, like, if you're doing what Zrog does and, has, and you want to see a lot of endings, then yeah, it makes sense to work out an optimal path through the game. But to me, the process of discovery is some of the fun. Yeah, everybody says Edicts Marshall. All right, so instead of Easton Feckery, it's Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest, diplomat, gardener, a soft-voiced man with a very steady gaze. So for those of you from Lord Gloom's channel who, by the way, I don't know if I actually did the shout-out. I just think I talked about you playing Tarkov and Book of Hours. But yeah, for those of you who have been wondering what the devil I'm going on about with these salons, we're actually ready to begin one. So just as a small recap, because we already talked about these are items that I made over the course of the playthrough. The House of Light expansion added a cooking part of the game, as well as the ability to invite guests back. And we're going to be enjoying a salon in the Hall of Division and learning a little bit more about the characters that we've invited. So bring the light back to the mirrors where once Lady Ava held court. Here one might have lunch in the afternoon or supper in the evening. A good host will provide at least one first course, one main course, one side dish, and one pudding. My guests take their places for a late lunch. Keep an eye on the salon as it progresses. You will need to add a soul card to encourage the conversation to flow. Different guests will need different soul cards. The more guests, the longer the salon will last. So these are people that we chose earlier based on some previous interactions that they had with each other. And so we're expecting a few of these to sort of follow up. We're expecting some follow-ons for these. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing an extra interaction between your guests. Plus time remaining. Spice up the conversation. Add an Arab card. We all loved Vac back home, Aaron sighs. Coquille nods, her eyes glowing. You remember the poems we wrote for her? In other languages, of course. Except me. I wrote a poem to her, in her. I got in a great deal of trouble for that. Again. He recites a few verses, and Coquille claps her hands in delight. Conversation ebbs and flows. Say something witty, add a shaft card. Coquille brags to Stanislav about the child-eating topiary of her last father's palace. It's not clear whether or not he believes her. Say something witty, add a shaft card. Lively conversation. Coquille smilingly asks Douglas to remind her if there is an arrest warrant out for her just now. Not just now, he replies, but I'm sure we can sort something out. Coquille spends much of the rest of the meal quoting from Zara's Time of Division and asking which bits would get her arrested if she recited them at a cocktail party. Coquille asked incautious questions of Douglas. These two might say something else on the matter if you invite them out. Oh, you better believe I'm causing trouble with the weary detective. Okay, so Douglas... Conversation ebbs and flows. Lively chatter. Inject a little gaiety. Add a core card. Night has fallen. Dawn will come soon. So we may actually go overnight on this. With the ghoulish camaraderie of two pensioners in a retirement home, Douglas and Dagmar discuss the details of their medical issues and their subsequent surgeries. Say something witty, add a shaft card. The conversation dwelt on edicts inviolable. All right, so that suggests to me that we're starting to run out of interactions. The only thing is I don't know between which two characters. That might have been Aaron and Coquille, but I'm not sure. Reasoned discussion. Raise a complex question. Add a whist card. The conversation dwelt on orchids and narcotics. So again, normally the conversations have a bit more of the character of something up above, but we have had these people over a few different times now, so... A lively meal concludes. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory. Alright, memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So we lost basically most of our elements of the soul. But we don't get the... Yeah, everything comes in just at the last minute. Oh well. I'm curious if there's any indication that... Yeah, there's no real indicator that the conversation's been exhausted, so we're going to have to make some guesses in terms of who that that applies to. Anyways, lively salon. We've got our satisfaction, curious hunch again. We have orchids and narcotics, edicts inviolable, surgeries and exsanguinations, 2 of those, leaves and thorns, and back. Okay. So what we're going to do here, I basically have too many skills, or too many levels in my skills, but seeing as we are doing the various salons, I figure I might as well get my money's worth out of them. So for Vac, yeah, we've got something we can level up with that. Leaves and thorns. Yeah, we do have something with nectar that we can level. Actually, I'll start arranging this now. So we've got the leaves and thorns for stone stories. Although I wonder, yeah, that's Grail as well, so... Okay, so then we'll move the insects and nectars up there as well. I'll try and stagger these a little bit. So the edict's inviolable. Okay, Hill and Hollow. Surgeries and exsanguinations, on the other hand. Interesting. So we can level this up to level 8. But it's actually going to be a level 8 that we improve wolf stories with. I'm actually, this isn't going to help me a whole lot, but I'm actually going to move drums and dances to level 9, even though it's like jumping the queue for a lot of these things. Drums and dances is a pretty powerful memory to move up. Jay, how you doing? Well, the Salons definitely make it very easy to go all level 9. Okay. So let's start with stone stories. So all the nectar and scale that I can get my hands on. Of course, I'm using up my consider verb right now, so there's not as many as I can get as I would normally want. This, by the way, is going to be easier said than done. So for the relevant texts, scale and nectar. So the scale, I guess, would be fear. I'm trying to remember where we were on the fear scale, so we'll do sevenfold slaying just because it's a neat one anyway. But yeah, so when I take a look, so we've got Solace, which is Heart and Sky. We've got Secret Thresholds, which is Knock and Rose. Stolen Secrets, Knock and Moon. Beguiling Melodies are Grail and Sky. Gossip is Grail and Rose. Foresight is Lantern and Forge. Pattern, Knock and Forge. Salt, Knock, Moon, and Winter. Fears have the scale that I'm looking for, as well as Edge. Satisfaction would be Grail and Heart. Impulses does have a Nectar, so we'll read for that. I don't even remember where we were on our... I guess maybe a green jasper tablet? Okay, so that's 2 of what we need. I don't remember if I said the hindsight or the regret, but that's Winter and Forge. Contradictions are Moon and Edge. Confounding parables would be Rose, Sky, and Moon. Hindsight, that has scale, so I don't even remember which one of these we were doing. I think we're doing the Bruges text for this one now. Okay, so that's 3 of the 7 that we need. It's more than I thought we were going to have, to be honest. So Bittersweet Certainty is Winter and Lantern. Earth Signs we actually already have, but that will be going towards the total. Storm is like Solace, it's Heart and Sky. Unhatched Hymns, that's Savage Hymns, so that will give us another scale to work with. And finally, the Intuitions, actually, sorry, not finally, Intuitions, which is Rose and Moon, and then we've got Revelations here, which is Lantern. So, and then I don't think we have any unique memories that only come from audio or anything like that. But yeah, so in terms of a count, 1, 2, 3, 4. So then I can bring 5 and 6 with the Earth Sign and the Hive's Lament. And then I guess 7 would be the scent that I get after the 30 seconds of opening. opening the package. Now I'm going to get myself a replacement Hive's Lament right away, so let's just go to the drum. Wrong one. Actually, I think I can just get by with a good old-fashioned regular health. No, I cannot. Oh, right, it's because it's double health. All right. So the reason I can do that is this takes 90 seconds as opposed to the minute for the Earth sign. So it'll be a little close, but we're not quite in the danger zone yet. So the next thing that I'll want to do is think about the next thing that I'm leveling up. So I think I'd said Edicts Inviolable was going for insects and nectars. But of course that doesn't work because it needs both moon and nectar. So if I move to surgeries and exsanguinations instead, I'm technically occupying the drums and dances. Well, no, we should still... But that also has a nectar side, so we should do stitching and binding. So heart and sky. Okay, so for that we will read... first of all, a book with Solace. Actually, Heart and Sky is relatively easy. So we already have the Satisfaction. Okay, we'll go for the Storm. This technically isn't to my advantage to do so, but I'll actually read the Beguiling Melody books. I'm just trying to think if there's anything that I want out of the recordings, and at this point... Oh, actually I don't have the Cheerful Ditty yet, so... Okay, yeah, so I've got enough to do the basics with. I do want to examine the Watchful Potted Plant for the scent memory. That's going to be what unlocks stone stories for me. But after that, we're probably not going to get all of this done in one session. But once we finish leveling up the various skills, then we can go back to examining the different items in the house and just generally pushing along the day's work. All right, open a package, unwrap, unbox, unleash. So we have 2 pheasants. I don't think we have any space in the pantry now, so we're just going to put all these in the well for storage. Oops. And the almonds we do have space for, so at least for some. Okay, so as promised, we will interact with the Watchful Potted Plant. I do feel a little constrained by all the elements of the soul that have already been taken up, so I want to try and be a little thoughtful in terms of how I'm using them. All right, here we go. A watchful potted plant. Not everything needs eyes. The sense of awareness persists, but the plant remains immobile, unsettling but harmless. It doesn't even have thorns. So there's the scent. Green scents recall rain. The sevenfold slaying of the seven coiled, an account of the destruction of a primeval hour, a god who was stone. There are 12 verses. In the first, an ascendant hour, identified as the Scarred One, enumerates his justifications for destroying the seven coiled, its appetites, its growth, its enmity to humanity. In the second, a priestess puts out his eyes and scars his skin to protect him against the seven coiled's magics. In each of the next 7 verses, he destroys one aspect of the seven coiled. In the 10th verse, the Scarred One bathes his priestess patron in the blood of the seven coiled to lend her power. In the 11th, they assault the temple behind the world, entering it by force. In the 12th, they swear a tripartite oath to protect their ancestors, their descendants, and themselves. The Green Jasper Tablet, supposedly copied from a tablet of green jasper, which serves as the covenant stone of the Monastery of the Fifth Cup, the token which gives that library shelter beneath the Watchman's Tree. Humankind hid itself from the glory's light in the roots of the Watchman's Tree, but for every chink we stuffed with cloth and hair, we opened another, and the light crept in, until we looked below into nowhere, and the eye of the mare in the tree winked red. The tablet expounds the dangers of inviting in the nowhere hour called the mare in the tree, and also of forbidding her entry, since she can never be entirely be denied. Along the way, it reveals the secret of the sacrament malachite, in which the merry mare merrily spits, brewed from the rights of the roots from the pneuma pear in the presence of sufficient nectar aspect. Nin's Cages, the Bruges text illuminated. The merciful measures of the witch Nin. This is only a partial version of the original, but it contains illustrations by Nin's pupil, Mabelie of Bruges, which supplement the original. Nin's stated aim was to keep beyond the walls of sleep that business which should not trouble the world. This includes fever, madness, and delirium, as well as spirits identified as devourers and deceivers. Mabelie clearly enjoyed drawing devourers and deceivers, but was less interested in illustrating disease symptoms. Nin warns against invoking the edict's liminal or inviolable before sleep, for no matter how secure a lock may be, its key will surely open it. Mabelie has helpfully illustrated this by drawing a sleepwalker clambering through an open window, about to leap into the jaws of a sea monster. The sea monster is goggle-eyed with happy anticipation. The Orchid Transfiguration's Noon, the 3rd volume of a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. A long dialogue between the Mountain Mother and the Vigilant Storm describes the ways in which both mountains and storms end, and the protections they can use against those ends. But we must use the knife, said the lion-throned one, the noose, the flame, the waking word, against those who have passed the three-valved door. So none may pass. That is our law and the law of the sun. The Locksmith's Dream Incursus, the 5th and final volume of Teresa Galmier's notorious work, which began as an examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans, but became an account of her own occult journey. This volume was apparently never published, nor allegedly even written. Yet here it is. The law goes all the way back to stone. The keys cannot be held or owned. This had, I believe, the unexpected consequence that those outside the law may hold and own them, but even they cannot keep them. And of course, a key is no more physical than a spirit, but a spirit may be housed in a body, and I have touched a key with my own hands. So the Legions hold the keys. I had thought the Legions only old and powerful transgressors of the crime of the sky, but I begin to understand that the crime of the sky is more even than it seems, and why a twin who unites what is not to be divided might accept Elysian as her name. The Unhatched Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers, and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadows, in whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. What does not bark? Alexander Probst writes warily of Calyptra, a law, a principle, or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star, or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the hours can make use of them? Opening the Sky, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal. The second unsettling, febrile. The third is bright, soaring, rapturous. The fourth movement is glassy, slithering, a tintinnabulous icicle rattle. The fifth returns to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement. It becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong. They recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven, and they wrench the heart in a direction that Bureau does not permit. And the Morphe Codex, a priestess of the Sisterhood of the Knot, claims to have discerned the true meaning of the Thunderskin's birth. The writer credits the Red Grail, the Ring Yew, and the Horned Axe, the powers the Sisterhood reveres, with agreeing a final treaty between the Hours of the House and the Hours they displaced. The Thunderskin loved the Yew, and the Grail destroyed him, as restitution for the slaying of the Horned Axe's sisters and brothers. The Thunderskin entered the Mantis through the Peacock Door, a privilege never given to the Witch and Sister, but then their merit was much less. The writer admits that entry through the Peacock Door is unseemly, but insists that under the circumstances there was no other way. Okay, so now we are going to get some work done. So first thing we're going to do is level up Stone Stories, because we will have the Hive's Lament replaced in a minute. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... health, and leaves and thorns. At last, I approach mastery. So that'll take 30 seconds. So while we do that, we've got edicts inviolable. I'm actually going to move surgeries and exsanguinations a place up for that one. Hang on. I think I made a boo-boo. Because I can't level up Hill and Hollow with this. Okay, so Orchids and Narcotics will level up Insects and Nectars. Okay, so Drums and Dances, Insects and Nectars, Stitching and Binding, Hill and Hollow, right, okay. The really maddening thing here is that we're just one short for Stitching and Binding. So I guess in a pinch I could do another Savage Hymn? Nope, actually we'll just use the Final Understanding. Or better still, the Sunny Day. Okay, cool. So I think I don't know if I'm going to try and go for the drums and dances, but I am going to recover the earth sign. Well, let's say we tried. This is already a level 8, so... One... Or actually 2, technically. Three. Four. Five. So I can get up to 7. Okay, yeah. So it's a full court press on this one. We're going to need the scent and the sound afterwards. So while we wait for drums and dances, let's say we do... The rose in the sky shouldn't be that hard to get together, so... I guess we can use gossip for... Rose. And I feel like there's another... So I want to try and use the... get the confounding parable from something else. So yeah, we could do the... intuition. So then here I can employ the Fet with Tower Rises for the confounding parable. And we will have already used the cheerful ditty, so we can also listen to the invisible opera. Sorry, that one took a little time just because I needed a minute just to make sure that I wasn't leaving some obvious ones to the side. So what we're going to do is we're going to level up stitching and binding first, and then what we'll probably do is do a detour to drums and dances, and then from there we'll probably have enough time to sort of see where our existing memories are sitting. Like I said, I don't have an expectation to have everything done for today. It's more of a... It's almost kind of like, how much can I get done kind of a question. Okay, so stitching and binding again. We're doing this just so we can stop squatting on a couple of the useful songs. At last I approach mastery. Improve the skill to level 8. Okay. So I do need to put some effort into getting drums and dances up. So we're going to put the... basically, the leveling is going to go on hold for a little bit while I deal with this. Investigate the object. You won't use this up or consume it by doing this. In the meantime, we will queue up some more books. Dirashu Quercum. In English, the title translates roughly as The Account of the Oaks, but this is Nathaniel Darcy Evers' fascinating, if haphazard, survey of the occult properties of every tree he can find, not just oaks. In Persia, Taxus Baccata, the yew is called Sorkdar, which is the red tree. There they had understood the Grail root. In later times, the great king of Pontus had beehives set in the branches of the oldest of the female trees. The berries of the Pontine yew open the door to death, but the honey of their flowers opens a different door entirely. This was not the great king's Mithridate, but one who has suckled at the great yew fears poison no longer. Perhaps they should. Nathaniel is here distracted, however, by the toxic properties of certain inks. He does mention more usefully that the minor ink of power Ugol can be brewed through rites of the roots with the assistance of the aspect nectar. So, of course, we'll get another one of those earth signs before too long. Let's just finish our existing reading, though. The Mirror of Melissenth, the daybook and dream journal of Abbess Melissenth, venerated as a saint and respected as an alchemist. Melissenth speaks longingly of those we would call from behind the sky. Melissenth claims that the sights and sensations arts that she describes can be used to invoke the dream of a star when sufficient sky aspect is invoked to uplift an ascendant harmony. Callicite Supplications, prayers addressed to the Red Grail by the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot. If we should remember not, let our children remember, and their redmost dreams. One prayer describes how sufficient Grail aspect can be used with Tridesma Hyra rites to give a life, a little life to a doll twisted from fabric. The Invisible Opera, a recording of a 1911 attempt at a performance of Wings Within Wings, the so-called Invisible Opera. The singers complete the Skubald aria, Beneath Our Skin, and A Rose in Maya without incident, but the Invisible Opera is dedicated to Pharisref the Magpie, who delights in unexpected interruptions. The recording ends with a clamor of horrified voices, a grating metallic screech, and a soft brass buzzing that fades into burring silence. Apollo and Marsyas, the libretto of a lost opera concerning the contest between Apollo and Marsyas and its tragic outcome. The librettist is identified only by their initials. In the original myth, Marsyas lost the musical contest and was flayed by Apollo, who later regretted it. In this version, Marsyas' skin has a further history. The skin of Marsyas gives oracles and is later smuggled to Phrygia, where the priestesses of Cybele use it for a drum. At the climax, the striking of the drum drives would-be violators of the priestess to suicidal madness. The opera ends with a wistful hymn from the youngest priestess on the beauty of mountain pines. The Temptations of Architecture. The antiquarian and nyctodromist Ambrose Westcott writes of the dangers of doors with particular reference to a house in the Bounds named Treowin. No doubt they have come to regret the ambitions of their winding stair. Even now in Treowin, a silver sea is unwisely visible from a rash window. Westcott explains that the wheel locks, the charge holders of Treowin, have had recourse to dramatic measures to prevent oniric encroachment, removing the entire top floor of the building. Nevertheless, he writes, the business of the Moon Hall has begun to touch the other business of the house. The 26 Enticements, 7 Torments. The painter Niels Fredrik Malsker notoriously attempted a series of paintings based on the torments. By the 5th torment, the demands of the painting had grown so dire that he died of blood loss. The diagrams in this text are thankfully less detailed. The enticements of the Grail outnumber its torments, but its torments are its final nature. Birth is the 1st torment, and thirst the 7th. Through the enumeration of the Grail's enticements and the torments winds the sorrowful history of the witches of the dry land, the ordeal of birth from 2 wombs, the struggle from and supplication of the Grail, the yearning for union which drives them all. So, I just got to divide these a little bit better. The Humors of a Gentleman. Samuel Savage's satirical comedy on the intrigues of the ailing but cunning John's son, his mistress Mavelyn, her lover Leo, and the upstart Corvino. By the end of the first act, Mavelyn has revealed a secret door in the walls of the house to Leo, and Corvino has taken to consuming worms. The play is scabrous and occasionally hilarious. The characters are contrary and capricious. Many of the more resonant lines might well be formula of power disguised in plain sight. A tower rises. The phonograph is packaged in glossy card, the bright pink of a dog rose, with the words "A Tower Rises" in 9 languages on both sides. There is no other identifying information at all. A recording of uncertain origin, inexplicably compelling poetry recorded by a speaker with a high, sweet voice that scales up beyond human hearing, in the language called Vac, which probably isn't spoken by more than a few dozen living scholars. The poem speaks of the wheel that turns, the coil that turns, the tide that returns, egg that returns. It speaks of a cloven sky, an opened heart, a drum of glittering eyes. Speaks lastly of its own conclusion when it might be spoken in dreams before the deep door by a messenger of histories. And against the sisterhood of the knot and the foulness of their depraved customs. Hieronymus Pseudo-Hypnotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the Sisterhood of the Knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Hieronymus claims that the powers that served the Sisterhood of the Knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the ewe, and the Grail destroyed him as restitution for the destruction of the Axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the manses through the peacock door. This, Hieronymus insists, is abomination upon abomination, but then that most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. All right, so I have a little bit of work to do to just to make sure that everything's queued up. So we're currently getting the scent memory. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, that's sufficient. So with 8, we're good to go. So that means I should get the earth sign right away. Okay, so I was working on Sky Stories. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 for the Sky Stories. We just need 3 more, so I'll get the easy Sky memories for that. Okay, so that was the 3 for Sky Stories. Now I need to finish the rest. So let's go back and work on... I guess it has to be Stone Stories at this point. So right now I'll pursue whatever scale I can get. Okay, so it's fear, hindsight. Was that it for... I guess that was, because then there's the earth sign, but we're already working on that. The unique moon stuff I can get, I guess, would be the confounding, or the contradiction. But yeah, I've really kind of worked myself into a corner on some of these. So out of everything, I need moon, nectar, and scale. Other than that, there's not much to go on. Although for some reason I'm not getting a stolen secret yet. Okay. I feel like I sort of bungled this one, but again, we're only at the halfway point of the day, and we're about to level up 2 of the skills within the next minute, so I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. What I might do though is once we're done this round of reading, I might take a minute to just take stock of where we are. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, the day is catching up with me. I may take a small break just to get some tea. The sense of awareness persists, but the plant remains mobile, unsettling, but harmless. Doesn't even have thorns. So that we're going to turn into another level right away. Now, the big reason why I wanted to do this for drums and dances is there's a couple of skills in the game that give you sort of unique memories. It doesn't necessarily mean that those memories can't be obtained through other means, but generally having a skill at a high level that gives you one of those rarer or harder to find skills is generally quite helpful. So I've got one of them in the form of Edict's Martial, but drums and dances, you'll notice I've used the Hive's Lament a couple of times, and being able to get a level 9 drums and dances means that I'm going to be able to like to generate that with only a single health. I don't need to worry about using the health plus unless I want to. So that was one of the reasons why I made the rare exception to my general rule of sort of raising the floor of the various skills. And that's just because in this case, it makes it easier for me to access a particular memory. I'm going to have to put some effort into rebuilding a bunch of this stuff, but that's fine. I mean, the reason we get the memories are so that we can use them to make things. Okay, so we've got Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries of the cults of Isis and of Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. The Geminiad Volume 1, a fragile manuscript illuminated with twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty, and with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language, Fusine, is much older. The cover is tooled goatskin decorated with garnet. These pages outline the nature and the doctrines of an hour that weaves together the willing, an hour that is sought beneath the moon and at the water's edge, the sister and witch. The language is willful, naughty, poetic. It'll take some untangling. The first volume of the Geminiad reminds us that the sister and witch has been known to manifest as the witch and sister, and that this face is always hungry, while the other face may heal. It implies connections between the sister and witch and the hours of the upper Mansus, especially the lunar hour called the Menascate, but it is ambiguous on whether the sister and witch is a Mansus hour proper, and it speaks at length about the sadness of the two who are one, the sadness that remains from their time as flesh. I'm trying to remember what I was going to use this one for. Right, no, this is still for Sky Stories, so... The Wind's Ruin, the second volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of his years as a raider, when his name was not Thomas but Toke, scything the sea, striving for plunder. Abbot Thomas clearly regrets his storm years, and much of the book is taken up with his thoughts on penitence, but there are hints that he also misses those years and the companionship of his sword brother, ship brother, Trigev. Medusa's lament on the death of the hour called Seven Coils, the father of the mother. The first part of the poem describes the ambush of the Seven Coils by a warrior scarred all over by the traitor gods, scarred even unto his eyes, so that the sight of the great coils would not destroy him. The battle rages on until the Seven Coils drowns in its own blood, at which point the narrative turns mystical and elusive. A seven-titled goddess arises from the foam of its blood. She is an armored queen, a serpent daughter, a key, a healer, a murderess, an oracle, but her seventh title is not to be revealed. An introduction to the histories. The 17th century mystic and antiquarian Claude Hersault describes divergent incidents in 5 major histories. The prologue warns at length of the iniquities of one Julian Cosley, a former colleague who Hersault now describes darkly as a worm of worms. It seems Cosley advised Hersault early in the writing of the book, but Hersault later became suspicious. Hersault identifies blood, silver, design, and the worms as the central axes of each of the histories, and claims that the so-called second history is the true one. The Singlefoot Songs. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time on the slopes of Huashan, near the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations with the grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The Singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The Singlefoot sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become Singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. The Wainscot Histories, subtitled Stories from Behind the Walls, a miscellany of non-traditional histories including battles not generally acknowledged and countries which appear on no map, told in a playful, apparently fictional manner. Gore does not mention the Mansus directly, but constant coy metaphorical references to ascending the staircase of years, to the doors of sleep, and to the blue light of dawn suggest he had commerce with the unseen world. It was common in that time to speak of the division of the sun, by which contemporaries understood the eruption of barbarian forces and of their uncouth gods. So I think this is for this group. And the account of Kanishk at the spider's door, Loch Kahuli, Kanishk's victim and lover, wrote this account, perhaps posthumously. Kanishk sought to become a name. In pursuit of that end, he made Loch Kahuli the vessel of his appetites, promising Loch that they would ascend together. At the spider's door, he betrayed his lover. The Chiliarch listened to it happen and then forced Kanishk into his service. The Chiliarch cannot be denied. Loch Kahuli remained to write this work and to describe the outer magics of struggle and contest. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need one more for the 7 here. So I should have probably just gotten another cheerful ditty. But I'll work with what I've got, which is this. So we are leveling up Sky Stories with this one. I mean, I suppose I have the option of the Final Understanding, but it's not like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the best I could do here would be to get say, well, okay, I mean, I guess the trick there would be, nope, even then that doesn't give me what I need. So yes, we'll stick with this. And I can use, I guess I've used up all my fat, so we'll use the Fost here. Okay, so now I need to be a little careful in terms of my choices, but we'll be fine. So I think Hill and Hollow is the more likely of the two for me to level up, so we'll set that one aside here. So we've got the Fear, the Earth Sign, the Hindsight, Contradiction, and Stolen Secret. We need 7 Scale and Moon, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we just need 2. Ideally, it would be 2 Scale, because any nectar winds up wasted, basically. So the first, there's a couple of obvious candidates here. One of those would be the Savage Hymn. So that's 6. I'm going to put the Earth Sign up here, just in case. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So next best here, I think, would be Confounding Parable. So now we're back up to 6. So now I just need 1 more. And we don't have a Fear, so that was easier than I thought. Okay, so that little batch is good for Hill and Hollow. What we want to do now is get as much Nectar and Moon as I can. Now, I'm not expecting miracles on this. So, obviously Impulse is going to be a candidate here. I've already got the Earth Sign. I actually think that's it for Nectar. Well, sorry, there's one obvious one, which I should probably queue that up now. It's the reason we leveled this up. Okay, so yes, I think that is it for Nectar until I interact with the plant. So from that, we could do... So I guess the question is, what moon stuff do I not have yet? Now, it seems to me like I don't have the intuition again. So I can nab that one with the Republic of Teeth. Okay, so no moon. We have it. Well, yeah, we're going to need to wait on that. No moon, no moon, no moon. Don't have Assault yet. I don't think... Oh, no, I can use the metal. This is actually the last element of the soul that I can use without restoring elements of the soul, so I may want to keep an eye on that as well. Sorry, I'm weirded out by this confounding parable. Oh, wait a minute, no, because I was doing Humors of a Gentleman, so... Do I not have a text for... Okay, so Republic of Teeth is for intuition. Traveling at Night's for impulse. Stolen Histories I thought was for fear. No, I guess It Is Written is the one for the confounding parable. I really hope I've got somebody getting a confounding parable. Okay. I think that's it for... Yeah, I think between the Insects and Nectars and Hill and Hollow... I think that's what I got. Okay, I'm going to take a minute here to restore a whist. At the bare minimum, what it does is it gets me a little bit... I can just turn that into some extra money. It may also help push me over the edge for getting the memories that I need. I'm also starting to feel the day catching up with me. I have a little bit of coffee left, but what I think I'll do, maybe at the end of today or at the end of the leveling, I kind of need to figure out when. I'm going to take a small break. Like I said, I may not be able to go for the full duration tonight, but I do want to try and do as much of a full-length stream as I can. So I will just get a quick bit of refreshment, and then we can hopefully make a little more progress. So we'll see where we're at once we have these books, and then we'll decide if it's worth it to try and push for memories. Probably yes, but I want to know for sure. Okay, the Singlefoot songs. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time on the slopes of Huashan near the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations with the grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The Singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The Singlefoots sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become Singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. Looks like I might have overwritten something. It is written, Musgrave, fourth of the DeWolf line, writes tentatively about the Covenant of Brankrug and the legacy of the sacred inks he calls Incasta Potentialia. As light passeth through a prism into many colors, so the great ink separateth into the lesser inks, and the lesser inks into the inks minor. Musgrave coyly refuses to talk about the great inks, or else refuses to admit he doesn't know much about them. He insists that Ugol and Stargol, which can be mixed with sufficient nectar or sky aspect, are sufficient for most befitting purposes. Stolen Histories. The agitator and pamphleteer Alexander Sparrow inveighs against the monstrous serpents, the thieves of history. Sparrow acknowledges 5 histories, insists the 3rd history may be overrun by coils, and warns the 5th history is already lost. Sparrow, with his usual paranoia, appears to be conflating the horror of the Worm Wars and the Great Writhing with the activities of the Great Hooded Princes. Still, he draws thought-provoking comparisons between the princes, normally conceived as exotic knocklong, and the widely feared worms. The Republic of Teeth, an eccentric political tract by Valentine DeWolf. Valentine suggests that rulers should be selected to govern by serpents, not their subjects, for the serpent, being cold-blooded in its nature, is incorruptible. Valentine's initial proposal is that a college of electors should subject themselves to the bites of venomous serpents, which he grades in details, preferring the least dangerous, and should allow the resulting deliria to guide them in their choice of people's representatives. He becomes concerned, however, by the practicalities of ensuring equal quantities of venom in each case, and gets halfway through a proposal for using birds instead in the selection process before giving up mid-sentence. C does not regret. Isan Fekri, one-time Secretary Salvant of the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brandkrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. The sea does not regret the tide, Fekri writes, for when the tide has passed, it leaves its traces on the sand, which traces are the sea's memory. Fekri is a keen fisherman and speaks glowingly of the fish suppers of Brandkrug. He also admits that his enthusiasm for the bounty of the sea has altered him, that before he came to Brandkrug, he consumed only those things found in the earth. I was the greater thereby, but all of us give up what we were to become what we are. And finally, Traveling at Night, Volume 1, The Annotated Dream Journals of Christopher Lapoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist. Literate, entertaining, bewildering. The wood lies outside the walls of the mansis. As any student of the histories knows, the mansis has no walls. Lapoli describes how he came to make repeated visits to a dream wood via what he calls silver dreams. Trying to think your way to the wood, he explains, is like thinking your way to being in love, but I did find a secret that helped. Okay, so I don't think it's that realistic for me to... I don't think it's that realistic for me to have the last memory, which will probably be Insects and Nectars, to level 8. But we can at least level up Hill and Hollow. So what I want to do here is anything with scale goes in first. Yeah, we really don't have that many options. At last, I approach mastery. So in practical terms, what are we looking at? So I want to level up Insects and Nectars. We currently have 3. In 30 seconds, we'll have 4. Actually, you know, the funny thing is, if I... Yes, if I take a health and I restore this now, it is spring and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. So we've got the Confounding Parable, Savage Hymn, and Impulse. In 30 seconds, we will have the Hive's Lament. That's 4. Oh, you know what? That would have worked, except that I bungled it with the Savage Hymn. Unfortunately, the Savage Hymn doesn't help me level up Insects and Nectars because it's a scale only. So, okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I know I don't have that much time left, but I think what I will do here is I'm going to take a very quick, well, okay, sorry, I say very quick break. It depends on how long the kettle takes and such. But I'm going to take a bit of a break. I'm going to put the kettle on. I'll get some tea. I'm going to try and get as close to my normal run time as I can, but I would also like to just be a little sharper and have some slightly more insightful commentaries than just simply reading out the different cards that I'm putting in all night. So I will be back as soon as I can, hopefully just a few minutes while things heat up. While I do that, though, I would encourage you all to maybe get up, have a stretch, take care of yourselves, and I will be back as soon as I can to finish off our leveling and then maybe see if we can find a few more things in the house before we finish for tonight. But until then, I will see you. This is Vesper Fortune that gave us the be right back screen. I will see you all in a little bit. says be right back there. All right, I'll see you later. All right, thank you all for your patience. That was longer than I was expecting, and happy to see you, Revive Snow. Let me just get my blanket. Ah. Oh dear. All right. So I just yanked out my headphones. Okay, so that could have gone better, but we will be back momentarily. So yes, thank you for your patience. In this case, we'll just push ahead. So I'm going to keep the confounding parable. I'll keep that for tomorrow. And I should also be reading a book to get me the Earth sign. For those of you who are not familiar with Revive Snow, they're a broadcaster I'm quite fond of watching. I kind of like to highlight the rhythm games that Snow plays, mostly because Revive Snow has a camless voiceless stream. They use text-to-speech for the broadcast. Sorry, let me just put the confounding parable in the memory. So on its own, that's already quite interesting. Better now. But what also makes it really interesting is that because there's the VTuber avatar, I didn't appreciate that it worked so well with sort of VR games and sort of placing the character within the environment. And then on top of that, through Dare Drop, Revive Snow's done a bunch of games that I really enjoy. In fact, it was Phantom Brigade that I originally found their channel through. But there's a whole bunch of other games that I hadn't seen before that I really, I've grown either fond of or I've really enjoyed watching Snow's channel for. So definitely one to check out, especially also because they tend to stream a bit later. And so I was always a safe host at the end of the day. Also, I guess I should get rid of the I figure you all had enough time to get the best deal on viewers. All right, De Gratia Quercum. In English, the title translates roughly as The Account of the Oaks, but this is Nathaniel Darcy Evers' fascinating if haphazard survey of the occult properties of every tree he can find, not just oaks. In Persia, Taxus Picata, the yew is called Sorkdar, which is the red tree. There they had long understood the Grail root. In later times, the great king of Pontus had beehives set in the branches of the oldest of the female trees. The berries of the Pontine yew open the door to death, but the honey of their flowers opens a different door entirely. This was not the great king's Mithridate, but one who has suckled at the great yew fears poison no longer. Perhaps they should. Nathaniel is here distracted, however, by the toxic properties of certain inks. He does mention, more usefully, that the minor ink of power yew gall can be brewed through rites of the roots with the assistance of the aspect nectar. By the way, I will also mention one thing I always like about Revive Snow is I quite like frogs. Just frogs in general are great. But I like that Snow also will greet me with a frog in chat. I realize it's a little thing, but when we get a little bit closer to spring, I will be sure to read some thoughts on the common toad again. Okay, insects and nectars. We need 7 points. Now, one of the things that I can do right off the bat is the Watchful Potted Plant. And the other thing I'm going to do is we did buy operations of a certain finality. Now, this is actually one that I have not... I'm pretty sure I have not read it before. So we'll start reading this one right away. We should already level up Orchids and Narcotics before... Actually, we could do that at Ava's desk. We should... Oh, sorry, I say level up Orchids and Narcotics. We should see Insects and Nectars up before we finish this one. But okay, Winter a conclusion. I can master this mystery. But yeah, let's focus on... Okay, so we've got 2, 3 with the confounding parable, 4 with the scent. All right. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm not... Yeah. So I just need 3 more. Okay, so Hive's Lament, Earth Sign, Watchful Potted Plant is 3, Confounding Parable is 4, 5, 6, 7. Technically we could go further, but I'm actually happy to just sort of wait this out here. The book I'm currently reading will be Putrefactions and Calcinations. So that's Moon and Winter. So I figure Rhyme and Remembrance would be a good one. Probably Rhyme and Remembrance and Snow Stories, but we'll see. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. Okay, the sense of awareness persists, but the plant remains immobile, unsettling but harmless. Doesn't even have thorns. Now, one thing I should be doing before... I should have set this up before I started anything. We want to get another... Oh, okay, Thunderskin's peeing. It is then. I wanted to get another Hive's Lament, but I'm going to have to wait 90 seconds for that. Okay, on Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Loss, an account of an occult romance. A certain Para, son of Aaron, claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Damascene branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who rejected their past and future. The laws of the house forbade Matthias to love. The customs of the wood forbade the Imago to remain, so he conjured her a final time, when she had uncovered the shears of Alcapura, and she suffered him to cut the wings from her back so that she might remain, and he suffered her to cut the parts which hold man's seed, to keep them from the detestable act. This was love in all its blood and joy. We have cast out Matthias from the house. In the cradle of the roots, Matthias and the Imago left their names, and though their names were lost, they found their name-day riddles. This we recall in solution and separation, so that in the presence of the moth our memories may become our futures. Do this wisely, in memory of the name and the long who gave up their past, that they might be together forgotten. The Orchid Transfigurations, A Feast, a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, were supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. The illustrations are certainly striking. They flesh the skin and glow beneath the eyelids after the book is closed. We must devour to be devoured. We cannot be undevoured, as we cannot be unborn. And Honey the Comprehensive Guide, Harvey Haddington, pilot, polymath, confectioner, writes with great enthusiasm about the marvelous work of the bee. Haddington insists that all the primary aspects, nectar, scale, heart, lantern, moth, grail, are possessed by bees and expressed in honey. Clearly, he points out, there are only 6 primary aspects, as a honeycomb has only 6 angles. Yugal ink is prepared with these techniques, but so is Skinchuck mead, and only Skinchuck requires honey. Just as any beverage or foodstuff can be improved with the addition of honey, so any garden is improved with the presence of bees, even those bloody blumberendi. Alright. So this is the Salon batch that I'm finishing off now. And for this, I'm just going to use the health, seeing as the nectar's easy to give up here. So at last I approach mastery. So where I can, I'll get the Hive's Lament back. For now, though, I'm going to worry about restoring what I can, and that's going to be the Earth Sign. Next up, because as we talked about, it's putrefactions and calcination, so I'm going to focus on whatever winter and moon I can get. It would be nice if I had a slightly clearer idea about what exactly I want to accomplish with this. Actually, one thing I should maybe do before I go... you know what? We don't need to get too crazy about it. We'll focus on the books first. It would be nice if I had a slightly clearer idea in terms of how I plan to use all these memories, but it's not a huge hardship to just queue up as much winter and moon as I can, and then just kind of move... I'm trying to remember how far we'd gone with this. I think I'm just gonna reset. But yeah, so in this case, we know most, if not all, of the memories that I'm getting are going to be ones that are compatible with the things that I'll level up. So I don't feel as bad with a slightly more scattershot approach here. Okay. There's still more that I can add here, but we'll just wait for the timer to tick down. I also don't know what the end result of this text is, so we may already have duplicated some of our work. And then in 40 seconds, I'll be able to finally make my Hive's Lament. The skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. Now, I'll confess, I do kind of wish I had a clearer idea on whose interactions were exhausted. I think it's fair to say that Coquille and Douglas probably still have more to go. The others, I would guess, excuse me, that's Aaron and, either Aaron and Coquille or Aaron and one of the other guests. But I'll figure it out. I'm sure there's a way for me to make a note of who's participating in what conversations. Okay, Operations of a Certain Finality, subtitled The Hammer's Sundering, the work of an anonymous adept who violently despised the invisible Serapeum, the Library of the Watchman's Tree in Alexandria. The author outlines the means they had taken to sabotage the place and its collection, which increasingly seemed more poetic than effective, to the point where the whole business may in fact be some kind of allegory. The author gloats that with the techniques of putrefaction and calcination, they have transformed the library's stocks of azimil to a seduction of black sapphire, which will ensure the texts therein contain only moon truths. So 2 putrefactions and calcinations. And we do not know that, so it was definitely one of the memories that I'm generating here. We just don't know which one. So I'll check that out later. Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. As the dances drew from the traditions of the mysteries, of the cults of Isis and of Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. De Oris, Book 3, in Latin, a 19th century reprint by the indefatigable Nathaniel Darcy Evers of a 14th century Latin translation of a 4th century work. This is usually described as the third volume of De Oris, but Darcy Evers' foreword argues persuasively that it's a substantial reworking by the original author. The lionsmith makes monsters, the colonel has his scars, but the De Horis now insists that neither can truly defeat the other, that they must at some level understand these limits in their strategies, and that their enmity is an eternal engine of the world. The Crossing to Noon, the mystic Garcia Sauri gives a picturesque account of the adventures of Franklin Bancroft, Prince of Wines, and Ava de Wolf, the Pale Lady, on their way to the hidden island of Noon. For a long time, the Blackbone pondered her next move, until the moon dared to peep from behind a cloud, and the prince completed the composition of his third sestina. But the lady met the blind gaze of its open pores, waiting for the tide. Garcia Sauri acknowledges in an epilogue that it is widely known that Ava in fact tragically drowned herself and her twin infant granddaughters without ever making such a journey. But he adds contemptuously, it is also widely known that the city unbuilt will so remain, that only one history is ever written, and that Janus is a Mansus prank. The Snare of the Tree collected proverbs of Aunt Mopsy. Once in the wood we call a visit, twice in the wood we call a journey, thrice we call coming home. Every timber has its knots, the straight and crooked both. Every weave is more absence than thread. You can't keep nowhere out any more than you can keep somewhere in. When the cuckoo learns the nightingale's song, our sleep is sweeter than honey. And the White Book of Brittany, a volume of death lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The white flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deeper than snow. The white flower is described as the death of wisdom, but wisdom can pass into sleep, not death, when the rage of glass is subjected to sufficiently powerful winter aspect while ragged crossroads arts are invoked. The Gospel of Zacchaeus, an extremely heterodox account of the Nazarene Messiah and his works, describing his ascension to the mansus through the opening of his body. 7 were the wounds of his body, 7 the doors of the house, 7 the lesser aspects of the hours, and knock the aspect above all, for the mother of ants is the mother of salvation. The book includes a description of a rite which can be used to raise a corpse to half-life in memory of he who bled for the wood, but the marginalia claim that the mother of ants no longer permits use of this rite. And the Barrowchild's elegies. The Barrowchild, a Gaulish adept who won a place in the ranks of the Ordo Lamea, enumerates the great shadows laid to rest in the tombs of power and discusses their various conditions. The Barrowchild identifies numerous modes that are neither true death nor true life: the vitrification of the heart, the corrupt light of the wood, chorostasis, the wandering of the fet. The Barrowchild warns particularly of the avidity of tryst, where a remnant shadow's longing for change survives its sense of self and even devours its wist. That longing may draw the curious into the tomb where the remnant shadow changes so that it cannot be distinguished from its visitor, or that the reverse becomes true, and that it is never again possible to say whether it is the shadow or the visitor that exits the tomb. Okay, so we've got a bunch of stuff here. Let's first work out what we want to level up. So we definitely have things with moon and winter that we can level. So yeah, I think probably maybe snow stories and rhyme and remembrance. And I'll put rhyme and remembrance up first. Oh, well, actually, it doesn't really. I guess we can restore them. I thought for some reason snow stories wasn't winter and moon. So what do we have first? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we actually have just enough to be able to level. So that was pretty easy. Now I do want to reread this book so I can know what memory it has, but before we do that, I think it probably makes a little more sense for us to just clear out the last of the lessons. So we'll do deaths and their evasions, which requires Fusine. So 1. Two. 3. 4. 5. 6. 'Use the Hyksos, so 7. Okay, so that should cover us for the last memory. And then here I'm just getting my replacement Hive's Lament. Now again, I have more options in terms of things I can read. Actually, one thing I will do just to queue up something I was going to do already. We've got enough time now. I can read operations of a certain finality. And so the idea here is that I'm going to use all these memories that I get in 28 seconds. Those are going to go towards the leveling. Whereas the one that I get from in 47 seconds, that'll just be on its own, and so I should be able to find out what the memory from that book is. And then from there, we'll maybe speed things up a little bit, and then I'll go back to investigating the various items inside the house until we get to summer. Now, we don't expect anything big to happen in the summer. Actually, sorry, that's not entirely true. We'll do the Salon, and then I'll also complete a further story. But the main feature will be waiting for the next event. Okay, deaths and their evasions. Father Stanislav John Schaller writes of the means and limitation of passage between the orders of the Mansus. No long names hours. Unusually, Father John has written this book in Fusine, for he says a special secrecy. He speaks very cautiously of the exceptions that can sometimes be made to the edicts of Chancel and Calyptra, and hints at the means by which he successfully returned a lantern long to flesh. Schaller mentions most cautiously of all that he has been permitted to see a book that speaks more deeply on the matter, but that it was surrendered into the shadow of a covenant stone of the Watchman's Tree. It can be retrieved if the 99th wink is reserved under the Edict Liminal. The Larkabine Codex. Christopher Larkabus claims to have purchased 2 handwritten copies of the Codex from a family of witches on the shores of the Sea of Marmara. A third was given to the sea. The sister and witch came from the west, where they were born in 2 wombs, one a princess, one a monster. Nevertheless, they loved each other from birth and met in secret to seek union. When the great drought came, the kings of that land tried to sacrifice the princess and the witch, so they sailed across the sea. When despair took them, they flung themselves into the drowning waters, and so found the Painted River, where they entered the Mansus through the offices of the Red Grail. Nevertheless, the Codex ends with a condemnation of the Grail. The Serenity of the Black Wood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which it is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Serrano Blackwood is an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travelers in the wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover that they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign, and that they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. They never forget that proverbial footloose, the centipede, but they never forgive her either. The world does not weep. Brown Joshua found this in a well in Hamath. There's an unlikely story that it was abandoned by Alexander during his retreat from Issus. The unknown adept who wrote this proclaims, "The world forgets, but the ivory dove does not." The text contains a number of prescriptions for ensuring that certain acts are remembered, including a rite which requires a sacrifice in a particularly monstrous mode. The Hours tried to bury the memory of what happened to the wheel, the flint, the tide, and the 7 coiled, but the dove won't permit it. Nor will he permit what happened to the first egg to be forgotten, although it is perhaps the one thing that the Watchman might ever forgive. From History to Eternity, a contraband manual of the Inks of Revelation, the author explains in a brief foreword that she is a high-ranking officer of an agent of the duties, and that though she supports its mission, she has concerns about the long-term consequences of its work. All histories are braided into a golden loop, a shining ascent to eternity. I had never imagined I could be afraid that there might be too few truths. I could be wrong, but I'd like to leave at least one door ajar. Ichor Auroral can be brewed into an Incastum Terminale associated with the Second History, using Inks of Revelation techniques with Rose Aspect. The author warns that this is exceptionally difficult, since these techniques aren't aligned with Rose, but that's why I'm hoping the door will stay ajar, even once all the others are closed. I wish you luck. The 12 Letters on Consequence, Julian Cosley's epistolatory treatise on what may come after, addressed to his once friend Claude Hersault, the mystic and antiquarian. By the time he wrote these letters, Cosley was identified with the oneropolitical Worms movement, and Hersault with the Birds, meaning roughly that Hersault held the Order of the Hours to be desirable, and Cosley held it to be oppressive. Many of Cosley's arguments about consequence and finality are couched in erudite and practical alchemical terms. Others appear to be thinly veiled threats directed at Hersault. Some are both. And the Ascendant. The edgelong Dardesh boasts of her victories over her brother enemy Tareg in the days of the Shadowless Empire. Sweeter than wine, the nectar is the blood of my brother. We have raised up armies one against another. We have sated the Blackbone with the sinking of our ships. Dardesh's boasting at length turns melancholy. An edgelong is half a dyad. She may not defeat her hated brother-enemy without ending herself. She doesn't even want to, but she is aware to her frustration that she is a piece on the board, an axle on the ox cart, an essential part of the eternal engine of contention with which the lionsmith and colonel use to sustain the world. So, Rhyme and Remembrance. We'll do our usual collection. Should have at least one more tryst remaining. Yep. At last I approach mastery. And before I do anything else, I'm just going to wait on the remaining sort of 20 seconds to see what memory this book gives me. And then we'll start taking a look at some of the offerings in the house. Although I think for the substance, we're more or less done for today. I think we'll just kind of be playing out the season. Just for the interests of people's expectations, let's hindsight. Okay, I actually think my hindsight is completely, yeah. A buzzing in the skull. So for the interests of scheduling, I am going to be at the local game dev meetup on Wednesday, so there will be no stream for that day. I did also want to highlight that it looks like I might be going out of town for a little bit at the end of the month. So I imagine that will get in the way of at least one stream. Obviously, I'm going to try and minimize the interruptions and the impact to the stream. But one of the things about work is that I occasionally do need to, like, basically I need to work somewhere outside the office, and that in addition to the commute, the fact that I may not be in the same town, or at the very least, like, with regular access to my computer for streaming, that does sometimes get in the way of the plan. So third Wednesday of the month, always, that's the local game dev meetup. That's more or less set as a day that I don't stream. But yeah, the end of the month here is quite short notice and unexpected. So just a heads up. Right, the painter's stool, a comfortable enough perch. Someone has doggedly cleaned bird droppings and paint from this, not once but many times. The fabric is splotched and discolored. The varnish of the wood is still streaked like rain. Sorry, I guess I said I wasn't going to pause as I investigated these. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. The soft blue sofa gently complements the seas and skies around Brankrug. Ambrose Westcott ordered the destruction of Valentine's bed for reasons he did not choose to articulate. Much later, Brian Levinson had this sofa installed so he could nap here. So again, this is really just me exploring some fun stuff in the house while we wait for the end of the season, so we'll speed things up. Chak, Valentine de Wolf's magnificent green cockatoo. This painting is signed by Valentine himself. Valentine, who had an interest in the religions of the New World, named his bird for the Mayan god of rain and thunder. So yeah, we're over halfway through the day and the time that it takes me to read. So what I'll maybe do in future is slow down the when I'm reading. Departure. Here Valentine painted gulls migrating across a darkening sea. Each winter, the black-backed gulls would leave Brankrug for warmer climes. Valentine would command a candlelit dinner on the beach in their honor, with dancing and drumming, though he would never attend, only watch approvingly from the Gullscry Tower. Oh, actually, we're already at the end of the season, so... What's happening in the world beyond Brankrug? What visitors will the season bring? So I do want to be sure that we are actually completing this event here. If we are, then my priority is definitely going to be towards completing the event. We won't do the Salon tonight. I might do some preparations for it, but the main interest here is to see whether or not our strategy of inviting everyone with the relevant interests, if that allows us to finish an incident on time. Yep, that was it. So, The Affair of Apollo and Marsyas, an upcoming production of an opera with a very ancient pedigree indeed. Madame Matutine was convinced she would be the best-dressed woman in attendance. Corso improved his knowledge of stains, hopefully enough to identify the Savor Arts book he hoped to acquire in Paris. Mr. Ecdistis helped arrange the score for Apollo and Marsyas. Azita wanted to ensure that the production got every detail right to make it the best possible bait for her dearest enemy, Murad. Princess Coquille was confident she would be the best-dressed woman in the audience. What Eason learnt at Hush House convinced him that the production would not trouble the lower skies, especially, perhaps, with his intercession, and after visiting Hush House, Magister Hokebald believed he had determined the most suitable gifts for the performers. He almost thanked me for it. A story has no beginning or end. Arbitrarily, one chooses that moment of experience from which to look back or from which to look ahead. Graham Greene. Nothing particular is afoot. Any visitors this season will likely just want a general consultation. And Zachary Wakefield is here for us. I think I'll give him a knock book and then we will see what the further stories give us. Excuse me. Mr. Zachary Wakefield, marksman, detective, renegade. He has always been a quiet man, but since he left the Suppression Bureau, he has grown even quieter and terribly still, except for his fingers and for his eyes, always in restless motion. Librarian, I can see you. Okay. My visitor needs something sealed or unsealed. My collection can help. So Apollo and Marsyas. We should be able to tell it from the... Oh, right here. So our options are Ecdistis, Corso, or Morgan. Every production of Apollo and Marsyas brings something uncanny in its wake. What is it this time? Help the soprano ascend via a heart path. Help the soprano ascend via a sky path. Help the soprano ascend via a heart path. So we got two options for heart paths. So it's Ecdistis, Corso, and Morgan. Those are pretty easy invitations for us to write, so... Although it would help if I used a heart desk. Right, it's sky that I need. And I don't think it's likely that I would that it'd help out Corso, but I will invite him just so I can see where the rest of the event goes. So I was deliberately trying to split these up so that I could I want to use the collect option to see if I can make the Spintria make a little more sense. There we go. I mean, I suppose while I'm waiting, we can do the manual labor. But yeah, so the aim here we want to... I think I have a pretty clear idea in terms of where I want to go with this, but I would like to see how the story turns out. But yeah, I should also put some thought into the salon, but I knew today I would be working on the event, so I'm not as worried. Okay, did Morgan receive my invitation? Socialite, yachtswoman, and under the name Morgan, an Alucite, Elysian. The former means, among other things, that she eats people. The latter means, among other things, that she is not to be taken lightly. Senior Corso Reverti, manuscript hunter, legacy scavenger, mercenary. Many would question his ethics, few would deny his acuteness. And Mr. Peter Ecdistus, musician, mystic, impresario. Ecdistus was a dancer once. One cannot see him without knowing it. The wound in his thigh keeps him from the stage, but his every movement still has the cadence of a prayer. So, for the further story, so for those of you not familiar with this, this is another thing that was added in the DLC called House of Light. So in addition to the salons and the ability to invite people back for the salons, you can also invite them to complete further stories. So the original game just had the incidents, you'd kind of hear about what was going on in the world, but you didn't necessarily get closure. Whereas this version now, you, depending on who you help, you potentially will get sort of a follow-up, and you can decide sort of what path to go down for sort of a conclusion to this this particular story. So, our options here: Ecdistus. Help the soprano ascend via a heart path. The soprano, her name is Elodie. She has expressed certain longings to me of higher modes of being. She has the cross nature in her, but I do not think she should pursue it. Sometimes the cross frightens me, my friend. I fear what it would replace, so I had hoped to tutor her in the new form as I did back in the Ecdistus days. But she will have nothing to do with the Legions. Still, I think there may be a way. Do you have anything detailed on Duendrazones? Or just something good on Tridesma Hyra? Corso. Help the soprano ascend via a sky path. So, the soprano, Elodie. Lovely woman, we got talking. I say we got talking. Pretty sure she managed the whole thing, got herself an introduction. And she'd asked me very nicely to help her express her, you might say, inner self. I'd like to help, but I don't know as much as I'd like to. How about Cosley on the Carapace? Or anything good on resurgences and emergences? And finally, help the soprano ascend via the heart path. Of course I had an ulterior motive when we last spoke, librarian. Sometimes I wonder if I have any other kind. I have a woman at the opera in mind. A woman with potential. Never mind why. Call it another ulterior motive. Help me, please. I'm hoping you have something comprehensive on Duendrazones, perhaps, or matters of Tridesma Hyra. Okay, so, I'm trying to remember if we actually have, you know, the funny thing is, there is a book that gives me, a cheerful ditty, which I don't have, which mentions Duendrazones, but I'm just trying to think if there's... I wish I remembered the name. Okay, let's just take a minute and see. I know we don't have that book in the playthrough here, but I think we mention it at least once in the Hmm. Sorry, I was just trying to remember. I was wondering if in the Mallory, but it doesn't. I had that moment where I was like, ah, that might work, and then I thought, no, that doesn't make any sense. Um, okay. Um, it definitely feels like a heart text. Um, the one that I'm specifically thinking of explains how the Dwenger zones work. So like it's basically there's a one of the people one of the I think abbesses or something like that at in the solar period. Um, she's talking with a I think she's actually talking with the Dwendrazon, now that I think of it. And it's the one that sort of talks about the Caesura and the Caesura Magna. Um, but the more I think of it, like the other references, I guess there's kind of a reference to them in maybe opening the sky. Well, actually, I guess the other thing we can do, as always, this is going to be a I'm just going to make sure I don't do anything irreversible. This one, I think we can at least just try it, and I'm pretty sure Margot will say not quite. It's definitely not comprehensive, but that's not what I meant at all. Do you have anything else? Yeah, so I don't know. Like, actually, I think it was called Instruments of the Heart now that I think of it. The only thing is, I really can't think of anything else that makes. The only other thing that I can think of that references it is opening the sky. So maybe what we'll do instead is we will find something with Tradisma Hyra. I don't even know the best way of figuring that out. Maybe Callicite Supplications? She doesn't know. Oh, she does know Calicemi. Okay. Alright, so of course I had an ulterior motive when last we spoke. Librarian, sometimes I wonder if I have any other kind. I have a woman at the opera in mind, a woman with potential. Never mind why. Call it another ulterior motive. Help me, please. I'm hoping you have something comprehensive on Dwendrazones, perhaps, or matters of Tridesma Hyra. Return the next day. Alright, so we won't have Corso and Peter leave empty-handed, so I'm trying to think if there's a low-level heart. Yeah, Apollo Marsias will do the trick. have a couple things that we can investigate before we finish for the day. How enlightening. Wrong one. Oh, wait. Alright, the restful garden chair. Sit here a while and listen to the trees grow, or the leaves fall. Preferences differ. Inlaid with green stained bone. Okay. And this is just a chance for me to grab a little bit of money for things like the writing the invitations and such. I don't have any major investment in the outcome, but it's a nice to have. Really, we just wanted to take the timer out for the day. If this works as I'm thinking, by the way, I'm curious. The Watcher, another of Valentine's paintings, a barn owl he nursed back to health. Owls, of course, are associated with the horned axe, but only one with one of her blades. Very encouraging. Yeah, I'm a little curious to see how this turns out. I think we can probably just collect. There we go. Elodie the Soprano has begun a path which might end with her entry to the Mansis as a Dwendrazon. Of course, I had an ulterior motive when we last spoke, librarian. Sometimes I wonder if I have any other kind. Excuse me. I have a woman at the opera in mind, a woman with potential. Never mind why, call it another ulterior motive. Help me, please. I am hoping you have something comprehensive on Dwendrazones, perhaps, or matters of Trides Mahaira. Perfect, librarian, perfect. Now I will have, shall we say, a friend in the orchestra. Fear Carapace, a visitor, has been affected by recent events and may now be more inclined to join the Lighthouse Institute. So this is interesting because Schaller also has a fear of Carapace. Nine gold Spintria. Yes. Okay, so I was wondering if we would get to the point where, I mean, it says in here, right, Secretary Persistent, but I wasn't 100% sure whether or not we would actually get a Secretary Persistent. So we do. Let me just make a quick note of that. Cool. So actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we, I think, have enough to found the Lighthouse Institute. So if I'm not mistaken, Fraser starts off as inspired. Under Secretary Salvant, I believe we've got Stanislav John Schaller. Under Secretary Vigilant, I believe it's Arthur Moore. I think for Secretary Enigmatic, I believe we've helped Yvette. So for Secretary Nunciant, obviously Connie is in the collection here. And then we just have our Secretary Persistent. It's less clear to me as to whether or not we have to write a history. I'd kind of like to. I'll put that in the records. But yeah, I would kind of like to do at least one more. So the thing is that I don't necessarily want to. I don't necessarily want to go with all the characters or the first characters, let's say, that I have in the hang on, sorry, I just got to check my spreadsheet for. Yeah, no, that is a fair one. But yeah, so like, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is, I don't necessarily just want my Lighthouse Institute to be the first characters that I have available, because like theoretically, then every Lighthouse win that I would get would have Fraser as the treasurer. Ideally, what I'd want is a few of the characters that I think are compatible. By the way, I don't think Fraser's a bad choice. I just think I'd like to sort of kick the tires on a couple of other options. And as it happens, I also just would like to do a couple of other events. Actually, one thing did occur to me. If I combine the two, yeah. So this season, if I combine the two Inklings, I could draw a new. I could actually draw the event this season, and then, yeah. If I made the Avenue of Inquiry, I could actually draw the event now, and then presumably next season I would I'd turn it in. Okay, I may do that. But tell you what, okay, let's wrap it up for tonight, because I'm probably not going to be making very rational decisions. So under, I'm just putting my to-do list. So I think, yeah, so make an avenue of inquiry, host a salon. I mean, right now the guest list that I have in mind would be Douglas, Aaron, Schaller, Daymare, and Coquille. But if I can make a guess in terms of who finished their interactions, I might be able to adjust the guest list a little bit. From there, the only real question mark here would be, obviously, with the skills that I have, I imagine we'll spend quite a bit of time leveling up the remaining skills that I have. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 skills at level 7. Then of course the languages. So it's more likely than not that we're going to be maxing out a few more skills at the end of the next salon. On the other hand, it is also fair to say that I'm getting quite close to founding the Lighthouse Institute, and that means I'm closer to an end game. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't want to make the streams all about leveling up skills, but I think we can probably manage it reasonably well. But that'll be for the next week. So Monday, I think what we'll do, we'll host the salon. We will probably draw another event, just because I don't see any reason why not. And then from there, I guess it kind of depends what event it is. So, sorry, Season. Yes, I started very, very late, and I am at the 3 hours. I think I need some sleep. But I appreciate you stopping by. But yeah, so the overall plan on Monday, we've got some basics for Monday. Wednesday is the local game dev meetup, so I'm actually hoping to present at that one. So I really won't be streaming, but we will hopefully be back for Friday. And again, the end of the month, it is possible I may need to go elsewhere. I may need to be out of town. But I can. I don't know. I'll probably just announce that on.
Really?
I'll probably just announce that on Twitter and such. I'm sorry. I really need to get some sleep. I'm not being coherent. I will point out that Catako is currently streaming. Catako is an Australian broadcaster who I've been able to host a little bit more than I normally do, but she is a big fan of the Resident Evil series and has actually been doing some no-hit runs through the remake of Resident Evil 2. The other thing is that I know for a while she's actually having some trouble at work. I don't want to press it too much because it's personal, but from what I understand, she has some kind of condition which I know required some time away from work, and apparently the workplace was one of these sort of, we'll do the letter of the law, but we'll definitely make it quite miserable to work here. And so in addition to that causing, some inconsistency in terms of streaming, it just also created some pressure in terms of her stream. But I've been delighted, despite the trouble, she's been able to stream a bit more often. And it's actually, and also just has been streaming to a pretty sizable audience lately with lots of support in terms of the subs. So I always like being able to host her just because I know she's been pushing through a lot of trouble lately. And it's always nice to be able to give someone that level of encouragement. So anyways, have a good night. See you in the next one. Bye.